how do you cultivate real self-trust? I always say there's no handouts to self-trust. You have to be willing to say to life, to the world, I'm going to show up as who I am. I'm going to go for it from whatever my heart is guiding me towards, even if it doesn't make logical sense at times. And in fact, most times it won't, because the brain wants to protect us. We need proof, but it's really the way.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But if you're ready to level up your life and get results that truly matter in your health, business, mindset, and relationships, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Scheer Madness, where we have unscripted, real conversations with the world's top athletes, entrepreneurs, and coaches. Discover real-world and tactical advice from the best in the business. Let's go.
You guys are going to get so much freaking value out of today's guest on the Scheer Madness podcast, because I actually heard about her over 2 years ago before I even knew who she was on another podcast, Women of Impact. And her message resonated with me on such a deep level as a woman. Today, I'm so honored to bring on Roxanne Saffaie on the podcast. She is a writer, speaker, and coach in the arena of self-mastery and empowerment. She's a life athlete and relentless gold digger and all around just badass of a human that is inspiring women to win by reaching their highest ideals in life and taking a holistic mind and body approach, which you guys know I am all for with Rachel Scheer Nutrition. So in today's Scheer Madness podcast, we're going to be diving into self-mastery, what that truly means and entails, and how you can create an unshakable confidence with yourself. Roxanne Saffaie, I'm so honored to have you come on my show here today. And as I was listening to all of the different podcasts and diving into your content, I actually realized, Roxy, that I had listened to some of your content like many years ago when I was just like this baby entrepreneur, really trying to figure out myself. And it was actually the episode you did with Lisa Blayu. I think it was like the very first one. Yeah. And you say this whole thing about, putting yourself out there and not being afraid to turn up the volume. And when you do that, you actually allow a lot of other women to do the same. And when I heard that, it brought me back to a couple of years ago, because I was like, holy shit, I've actually heard Roxy speak before. And she actually impacted my life like far before I even knew who she was or before we even had met before. So that was just an incredible experience for me to really dive back into it, but everything to come full circle and have you come on my show here today.
That is so amazing and so wonderful. And thank you. I'm just so stoked to just be in space with you. It was so rad to have you on my show recently. And just for the record here on your show, I mean, when we met, it was just an instant yes, and we just had, we couldn't stop talking to each other. We were like, we're introverts, but because we just clicked energetically and, there's a lot of alignment. And so I think that's so cool that you took me in, on my girl Lisa's show before we even met. And it just even, and that it offered you something, that talk offered you something. It's just that full circle is so rad. So I'm excited, girl, to just always be in space with you.
I feel like there's like those certain people you meet in your life. And as you start to have conversations with them, it's like this really, really deep connection. And I didn't even obviously know you a couple of years ago, but you spoke to me on like such a deep soul level with where I was at in my own healing journey, my own personal development journey. And I know you're going to really speak to so many of the women, because I did for myself. And I know when we were over at our girlfriend, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' house, that's where we're both kind of introverted, kind of keeping to ourselves. And we just got like super deep, like really, really fast. Exactly. About everything, that is really about that holistic approach, which is, I know, something you're super passionate about. And one thing that I've heard you speak about is worthiness in a lot of ways. And I know my journey has been, I call it kind of like this unbecoming, because in my 20s, I cared so much about what everybody thought of me. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but I put so much pressure on myself, and I was freaking mean to myself. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I don't still struggle with it today, but I love what you really speak about when it comes from worthiness and being your authentic self. And this is something that actually I talk about quite a bit. I actually had a mastermind event that I spoke at a couple of weeks ago over in Houston. And I really talk about, the place that we're coming from with our health and really getting to the root cause, like what we do with functional medicine. And I think a big part of it is really that it's that self-worth piece. And that's where people end up with, being diabetic, they end up with metabolic issues, being overweight or reaching burnout. And a lot of my story, as was from that extreme side of fitness and coming from this place of unworthiness and trying to shame myself to health and fitness. And the fruits were exhaustion and burnout. But we also see people on the other side, right, who also don't believe they're really worthy. So they eat the shitty food. They kind of give themselves some kind of excuse of like, hey, I'm just doing what feels good. And this is self-love. And it's not self-love because they really don't believe, at the core, they're worthy of being someone who's fit and healthy at the end. So I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that, because I know that's something that I've really had to evolve through myself on my own journey, through my own health issues. And I really, truly believe it's the root cause of why, not all, but a lot of health issues.
Yeah, no, I love all of that. Thank you. And I know, just from, having you on my show and taking deep dives into your work and your story, it's very clear. It's one of the things I love so much about you too, is that you are about this holistic approach. You are about, it's not just the food, it's not just the weightlifting or, the supplements. It's really about the relationship that you have with yourself, because it all starts there. It all starts there, meaning everything. So it could be something negative, it could be something positive, it could be both, but it's all, in my opinion, in my experience, about in my fourth decade of life at this point, I've really, and a very deep introspective human soul. I've been writing my whole life. So I've been in conversation very consciously with myself my whole life through writing primarily, right? And just realizing like, hey, and I've had 3 knee surgeries. There was a lot of weight gain. This is back when I was a teenager. And I had to figure out I didn't have the tools then, to know, all the diet things and all that. I had to figure out, it was a long, hard, painful journey to figure out, like, how do I get back to homeostasis? How do I get into this optimal body composition? I knew I'm a mesomorph, I'm an athlete. So there was a lot to work out there. So using my own experience of how I actually worked through that, the process, and then also just, paying attention to life itself, observation of human. I love, human performance has just always been a love for mine. Mm-hmm. It's like, look, when you're really going to make a difference that is going to be sustainable, that's going to, be outstanding, it's always going to root back to, because you feel worthy. You feel worthy of, something I talk about all the time is you cannot just feel worthy of the victory. You have to feel worthy of the battle. There will be a battle, whether it's a psychological battle, whether it's a physical, whether it's a financial, whether it's all of the above, like whatever it is, there will be, and that's my terminology, right? Challenge, battle, interchangeable. There will be a battle. Do you feel worthy to put yourself in the arena, to go into that process, to get that sweat equity, to move yourself towards what it is that matters to you, what it is that you want to achieve, what it is that you want to accomplish? And in my journey, just in that specific, because there's many, battles that I've, gone toe to toe with, and still currently. But that was it, Rachel. It was like, I felt that I loved myself so much that I couldn't submit, to the challenge. I had to really, and I took punches all the time. Like, oh, it worked, it didn't work, or that was hard, whatever it was. But every time I got back up because I love myself too much to fucking stay down. I love myself. And in self-love, you have a lot of different attributes. Self-worth, worthiness lives in self-love. So that's why I talk about self-love, all the time. It's a core topic of mine, but self-love for me is not just some sweet fluff. And I know you and I are so in agreement on this, but it really isn't, it's not just a sweet, fluffy. It's not just self-care. Those are, like kind of, I call it like accessories to self-love. Self-love is having the hard conversations with yourself. Self-love is getting back up. Self-love is doing the hard shit. It's not making the excuses. It's not settling when you know in your heart that this is not what you're here to experience. You're here to experience more. And I can go on and on. I'll pause there. But yeah, it's such an important focus for us to share, really. Like, and I love that you share this so much through your channels too, because we can sit here all day long and prescribe like, oh, do this, do that, like, whatever it is to optimize your health and well-being. But if you're not looking at these at the inner world, I always say the inner shapes the outer, then you're missing the biggest piece, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely. And I think like self-love too in of itself it's such a cliche thing online, at least, because everyone's like self-love, like eat the food that you want to eat, whatever that is, do the bubble baths, like you said, the self-care.
right.
And, I heard the term, for a lot of my life, but it wasn't until I really got, like what you said, like in the arena, down and dirty, and went through some hard shit where I really started to learn, like, this is actually what self-love is. It's fighting for that best version of myself, of what I know that I'm capable of, what I know that my potential truly is. And I feel like there's that battle every single day, because we have this like lower version of ourself, right? And then we have this like our highest self. And every single day we get to make that choice. And oftentimes it's really, like you said, overcoming that hard stuff. And it's inner, it's the dialogue that we have with ourselves. Like when I get in the ice bath every single day, at the beginning, actually, I had the worst dialogue, and it was like, just get out. And I would listen to that. But like, I've really actually gotten myself to kind of overcome. And now the conversations I have with myself is like, come on, you got this, you can do this. And my dialogue has changed so much. And guess what? As a byproduct of that, like how I actually show up in things throughout the day that are difficult is completely different as well too. And I know that's something that you speak to quite a bit there.
Yeah.
But with worthiness, what do you feel like that really truly comes from? Because I know a lot of us, like through our childhood and our experiences, and I've heard a lot about like your upbringing, and I have a very similar upbringing, like where you even say on a podcast I listened to, like the odds were against me. Like I should not be where I'm at today. Yeah. But I look at you and I see this like incredibly beautiful soul who's like inspiring so many people, who truly loves herself. And you've had to really create that in yourself. And a lot of people struggle with that, right? Yeah. So if you had to break it down, and I know it's probably not super black and white, but what would you say are some of the things that have really helped you create that self-worth to fight for that every day?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would say number one is I have, and I continue to, and I'm being very specific. I'm very specific about words, to invest in time with myself. Okay. So this is really important here, because for the most part, we're guided to go out to get support. And I'm not putting that down, or for really like to gain anything. It's like, success, it's all out there, any kind of healing, it's all out there. Sure. Aspects of it are, but if you're never taking the time to just sit with yourself, ask yourself questions. What are you feeling? Cultivate self-awareness. You can't hear your heart if you're not really, being in space with yourself to hear that and I call the heart. So for me, the heart and the authentic self are one thing. And this is also where the voice of your intuition lives. Heart, authentic self, voice of intuition, right? Really important to really bond with, like create a connection with, because the thing is that we come out and all of us get programmed in different ways from different, for different reasons, parents, upbringing, this, that, like whatever, society, culture, right? And so the authentic self, now there's like conflict, because it's like, how do you discern between what's really you and what's, the program, what's the paradigm, right? Well, the only way you're going to be able to discern this information and to get clear, and this is where worthiness will start to come in, and I'll explain it because I actually have a 5S. I have a framework around this, but You have to be willing to spend that time with yourself. It's like any relationship that you want to forge, like with you, straight up. Like I've been saying it to so many of my closest friends. I'm like, this is a woman. I meet all kinds of people, and I meet amazing people. Then there are those who I'm like, no, but I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to invest in us because I genuinely feel called to do that. What does that mean? It means I want to build trust with you. I want to have a rapport that's really healthy and create memories, and like for us to really get to know each other so we can really come together as friends, right? That takes time and energy. We need to do that with ourselves too, but we've never been directed to do that. Again, everything has always been go out there, seek, this relationship, do this, get this degree, like go here and, get healed over here. But it's like, so most people overlook themselves, and everything that you really need is really within you. Again, I'm not discrediting the external, because community, there's so much that exists out here for a reason for us to engage, with and to gain from. But I think that there's disharmony. There's no balance there, because, in my world, it is both, right? It's like there's a lot out there, but there's even more so over here. So to give you my framework, because it could be really supportive, it's this 5S, because I got before, like at the very beginning of my digital career, speaking and coaching and mentoring, people would ask me all the time, especially around health, fitness, like the diets, like how do you stay so consistent? How do you do this? And I'm like, because I fucking love myself too much not to. And it's almost annoying to them, right? Because it's like, what does that even mean? And it's like, oh, but it's so much deeper. But okay, I'm just giving you the short to the point, truest answer. But then as I started to teach more, and I'm like, what could I do to offer like some kind of framework or teaching here that would really tease that out and make it more kind of, oh, okay. It's still deep, but I had to go inside and go, but Rox, how did you get to that place? Okay, you love yourself, but what was it? So it's 5 S's, and this framework is sequential. So it's in this order. So self-awareness is the anchor. Self-awareness is the greatest agent to change. You don't make any progress without being aware of self, not judging self, being an observation of self, being, connected. Well, that comes next, but really looking at your thoughts, looking at your emotions, right? Creating space between them so that you can actually decide, like, is this true? Do I want to own this? Do I want to, live from this? Or, oh, that's an interesting thought. Self-awareness is the most powerful emotional intelligence attribute, in my opinion. Once you start really tapping into more levels of self-awareness, then you can start to create what is the next S, self-connection. What does that mean? It means that now you're hearing your heart, you're connecting with your authentic self, your self-identity. What are your core beliefs? What are your core values? What do you stand for? Do you have any boundaries? What are your core desires? Not moms, not partners, not what I think society would like, or what do you want, right? The authentic self in my world is this. To put it simply, there's no shoulds that live in the heart. It's either a yes or a no. So your authentic self is what you really want to say yes to, what you really want to say no to, which is not easy. And we could talk about that more, but just to keep it moving in the S's. So you start to connect with all these aspects of your actual self, your self-identity. Once you start connecting with self, now we move into self-love, right? Because now you actually understand more of yourself, and you've also connected more like with your actual self, your being inside your being, right? And this is a really interesting, I actually think I call self-love the queen of battle, because self-love is fucking gangster to me. She, the queen, she's the one that's like, hey, I know you don't feel like doing that ice bath, but it's the best thing for you. Or I know you're afraid to get up and speak on that stage, but you need to do this. Or women waiting to listen to you. This is a part of your journey and your gift, right? So we're going to do it. We're going to go. We're going to move towards the fight. Now, let's just say, to give you another example, something happens, you take a punch in that moment, you fail, or Self-love gets you back up to help you keep going, right? You're on a program training, diet, and like, oh, you blew it one day. Self-love is getting you into the gym and food prepping and doing all the things. Self-love is also like, hey, this is just a day. It's not your whole, like the whole program. We got to keep it moving, right? So then the next S is self-confidence, because in my opinion, you do not forge true self-confidence unless you're actually doing the shit that puts you in the position to create it within yourself, right? Because there's a lot of pseudo confidence because it's external validation. Like, oh, you think I'm cool, so I'm cool. So let me be cool. But do you really feel that about yourself? Have you done anything that shows you like, I'm actually fucking a badass? You know what I mean? So doing things that help you develop self-confidence, an attribute, but also could be looked at as a skill, I think, in some ways. So self-love is a precursor to self-confidence. And then the final S is self-trust. Because when you start doing the shit that's hard, that's, helping you grow, where you're betting on yourself, you're taking chances, you're doing all of that. You've got no proof, but I'm the proof kind of, mentality and, approach to life. Well, yeah, you're earning your self-trust. I know I expanded very, widely on the concept, but it really is self-awareness, self-connection, self-love, where self-worth lives, self-respect lives, self-compassion lives, self-confidence, self-trust. And it's so important. And I say this so often, but it's a life game. There's no period at the end of the sentence here. Every time, oh, you've cultivated a lot of self-confidence. Excellent. But guess what? You're going to meet another challenge that's going to fuck with you and going to make you have to choose, do I stay down? Do I play small, or do I keep going for it? So it's so important to understand that there are levels to this game. And the goal is to just constantly be doing the investment work in each of these territories and understand that it's you're investing in you and your ultimate potential, and you getting the opportunity to experience the life that you truly want to live from your most authentic self,
95% of your body's serotonin is produced by the bacteria that resides in your gut. And this explains why when my gut was a wreck, or when clients come to work with me at Rachel Scheer Nutrition, they don't just suffer from things like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, but they also have symptoms of anxiety, depression, and brain fog, because our gut and our brain are highly interconnected. And as Hippocrates says, all disease begins and ends in the gut. And this is the exact reason why I am so passionate about taking a functional, root cause-based approach for any chronic health condition: gut issues, mental health illness, autoimmune conditions, stubborn weight loss, you name it. Me and my team do a comprehensive analysis looking at all these different systems so we can test instead of just guess, and then develop a customized nutrition plan and protocol to address these root causes and balances in the body and restore function. If you want to book a free 30-minute call with anyone from my team, click the link in the show notes or visit rachelscheer.com. That's so cool to hear you break it down into those 5 different pieces there. And also putting myself back in the shoes of okay, I recall doing this and this and this, because it is this entire evolution of what you're really speaking to, and I went through most of my, teen years and early 20s, just no self-awareness. I would have a thought and I believed that thought to be true, and I would react to that thought. And I was super impulsive with everything. And then byproduct, that's where all of my health issues really came from. And the big wake up for me was when I was being told I needed to have my large intestine removed. And then it was just this whole, domino effect of healing. And at first thinking, just like you said, that, it was going to be someone else to do the healing. And I'm just like you, I believe in coaching. I believe in getting an outside set of eyes on the things that you're really, really needing help with. I know you work with coaches. I work with coaches, and it's not about that. But I really, think at the core, like it had to be me. It had to be me who was like, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to figure out like, yes, what's going on, what's wrong with me, but really do that deep, deep, deep inner work where a lot of it, yes, there was some things I had to modify with my diet and, supplement protocols that were specific to like the bacteria that was off in my gut.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I really had to get clear on, where I was coming from. And I think it's really cool that you talk about that awareness, like kind of hovering above yourself and really observing yourself and everything that you're doing. And I think a lot of us just kind of go through life, right? Like reacting and going the path that we think we were supposed to go, like you said, using all of those shoulds. So I can totally relate to those people and, where they're at in that place. But even hearing, the evolution between self-love, self-confidence, and self-trust, I think for me recently, that trust piece has been like that last piece to the puzzle. And part of it is really that discipline piece and doing the things like you don't want to do. Because I used to push myself and I had confidence, right? Like when I would go to a speaking event, but there was this like little part of me that didn't really fully trust myself. So I would try to memorize everything that I was going to say because I didn't really trust myself fully. And then I had this last speaking event that I did a while back. And I just went in there and I was like, I'm going to trust that what I have to say is far better than anything that I could ever come up with, that I could write down in there. And I'm just going to speak from my heart and my soul. And Roxy, I got up on that stage and I was only supposed to speak for like 45 minutes, but they told me I could go as long as I wanted. And I ended up just like pouring out my heart and speaking for an hour and 20 minutes, all about healing and the place that we're coming from. And it was far better than anything that I could have ever, planned or put on paper. And what's so incredible, it was like this limiting belief that I ended up breaking through. And as a byproduct, it was like ever changing thereafter. Like I developed this trust in myself. I felt like I never had. And I had realized too, like I was doing all this work to like trust myself and doing some of that inner work, but I had to prove it to myself, right? Like I truly had to prove it to myself. I had to put myself out there. I had to be completely vulnerable, like getting up on stage, like not physically naked, but be like, I'm naked. Yeah. I'm here. Like I'm speaking from my soul and my heart, and I'm 100% my authentic self, and walking away with that and just feeling like, holy shit, like I did that. And I didn't even care at that moment, like if people liked it or they didn't like it. And I got such incredible, reviews of the people who I really was able to touch with that talk. But for me, it's like those, like that was a big thing, but I also think it's like those little things, right? Like throughout the day. And now I notice like every time those thoughts come up that are like, you can't do this, you're not gonna. And I'm like, that's not true. And I can refer back to the proof that I've really been able to create for myself. So it's really cool to hear you kind of break it down into those 5 different increments, because I didn't know any kind of like protocol. It's just kind of, like I said, been this like unbecoming and really stepping into like my authentic self with that trust there. I know one thing you speak about quite a bit, and I know has been a huge part of your life though, has been fitness and that discipline component, and how a lot of the things that you do with like being a black belt and
not a black belt in jiu-jitsu. That would be so amazing.
I'm going off of your name, Black Belt Beauty.
I know. Well, that's a funny spin off of, I mean, to me, so black belt is the highest standard, right, in martial arts. And their interpretation is to live from the highest expression of yourself is to live a beautiful life. And that's black belt beauty. So yeah.
Black belt and heart, soul, life, but jujitsu, fitness has been a part of your life for so long. Yeah. And for you, that's really been a catalyst for a lot of these things, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just want to jump in. I can totally tease that out because it is so true. And there's a lot to talk about in that space, but I want to acknowledge what you just said really quick about that experience with you. Because first of all, I love listening to you because I know I'm listening to someone who's really speaking from their heart. And I always talk about, there's a girl today, like I was at a store and she's like, oh, do you get nervous to speak? I'm like, well, no, because I don't speak from up here. I speak from here. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing for me to think about because it's just all true, whether you like it or not. Like but this is so important, Rachel, because what you did is when you show up as just in quotations, and you go in and that's what you're expressing. This is really where true self-confidence comes, because you're not being anything but yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? There is no performance. So it's amazing that, and I had no doubt, like, that at the end of that story that, it would be full accolades and like people just, because people feel when you're speaking from the heart. It's a different frequency, to kind of just put a bow on this little section though. How do you cultivate real self-trust? I always say there's no handouts to self-trust. You have to be willing to say to life, to the world, I'm going to show up. I'm as who I am. I'm going to go for it from whatever my heart is guiding me towards, even if it doesn't make logical sense at times. And in fact, most times it won't, because the brain wants to protect us, right? We need proof. But it's really the way. It's really the way that I'm sure after that event, you felt a different level of reverence for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Massively.
Right?
Yeah. Massive trust, massive confidence. And it was a different type of confidence too. It wasn't like the confidence of like, I'm fit, I have abs. Like, I've leaned on that confidence like when I was younger, but it wasn't like that true confidence of like that authentic self, like putting myself out there. It was this next level. I was like, I didn't even know this existed. This feels awesome.
Yes. It's because you're so vulnerable too.
Mm-hmm.
You're really just like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and be me. And you're so vulnerable because here's the deal. There's no costume. So if there's any like negativity or kind of like any feedback that doesn't feel good, it's going to really hit you in a different way, because you're really showing yourself, right? It's not the performance of Rachel. And does that make sense? It's like, and I'm not saying that you're going to own the negativity or like embrace it, but I'm just saying that when we are acting from our most, living from our most authentic self, we are more susceptible to being, hurt from feedback that, might not feel good, because we're really showing you our true self. And, that's one of the greatest reasons why most people won't show up as their authentic self, because rejection fucking sucks. It hurts. But every time you stand up to the possibility, forget about what actually happens, right? But to the possibility of rejection, man, this is why, like, any room, it doesn't matter who's in the room with me and who they have this, they're that. I've always been loyal to who I am. So there's an essence and a different relationship that I walk around within myself that has nothing to fucking do with status, such that I'll be in any room and it just, I like, my head is up here. No, I'm not like trying to show anything, but I'm saying like there's a different level of confidence when you're being loyal to your authentic self, because you're saying to life, like me or not, rejection or not, I'm going to be who I am. And that's real love for self, So I know that was like, woo, what just, but that happens with me.
No, I actually want to go in that, because I think, you can't have confidence when you're showing up, as who you think you should be and how you think you want other people will accept you, because as a byproduct of that, you're really rejecting yourself, right?
Yes.
And how can you ever be truly confident in yourself? Like, you could stand up on stage and give a performance, and it's a performance of how you think, you should be, and get, a standing ovation and everyone applauses. But you may feel good about that for a while, but you're like, that wasn't really me. That wasn't my authentic self. But it's completely different when you get up there and you're like, I'm naked, here I am, and I'm putting it all out there, and you don't give a fuck, if people accept you or you don't, because in that moment, what you're actually do is you're like, I'm accepting myself. I'm putting myself out there, and that matters far more. So yeah, some people may like it, some people may not like it. I don't care, but this is me and this is who I am. And I think that's just so freaking powerful.
I feel like it gives people, permission or inspiration both to go, well, okay, maybe it's safe for me to be my authentic self too. I mean, you have to cultivate that within yourself, but the truth is I believe that there's more people not operating from that. And I don't even say that from a judgmental perspective, because I understand that there's real fucking fear, that's holding people back from doing it. I get that. I get it from being a neuroscience geek and actually understanding neurobiology and how the brain works. But I also understand that there are, it's like this fear of loss, right? It's usually a loss feeling of you're fearing you're going to lose something, right? So I'm very compassionate and empathetic to the reasons why, but I'm such an advocate and so passionate about going, I get it, but trust me, the power that comes from, and power it's a healthy empowerment, right? That comes when you say yes to you continually, no matter what, even if you are going to lose something, maybe it's somebody that you want to like you, but now they're not going to like you, or that job opportunity, because the integrity inside is like, I can't be who you want me to be, brand. I gotta be me. So I'm going to miss this opportunity, quotations, money. I'm saying there's so many reasons why, right? I don't want to let somebody down. Right. But there's pain on either side. Okay. So you're going to either put yourself in a closet and say, shh, quiet, to your authentic self, whether you realize you're doing it or not. Like you're cheating on yourself. You're putting yourself in the closet. You're not important. You're not as important as this, being very specific about my words right now. And that's going to hurt, because even if you don't feel it in the initial, it's a slippery slope. You will keep putting yourself, your truth, in the closet. And then, later in life, like, this is a classic story. I say this often, but like, you hear the story of like somebody who on paper is so successful, and granted, like in a lot of great ways, a career that, but they're so disconnected from self that they don't know who they are. So maybe now they have to go on some massive spiritual journey to try and like come home to self, or they have to, like, I don't know, but the whole point is that because they did that, they didn't say, they didn't stay true to their authentic self. On the other end of it, you being true to your authentic you, be ready. You're going to get tons of rejection, challenge. There's going to be discomfort, pain. What I'm trying to say here is you can't avoid the pain, the discomfort, the suffering on either side. It's going to happen no matter what. Choose which side. I say, you say, choose you, because here's the thing, Rachel, it's like, whenever I have to make a decision, one of the most important, and decisions are very important to me, my future self, my highest self. I see this woman as like, man, that's a woman who made some badass decisions, like powerful, not right, wrong, good, bad. Like, I don't use that. Powerful, or maybe not so powerful, right? Disempowered. When I need to make a decision, I try and future pace, like, how will I feel when I look back at this? Can I stand in it? And even if it meant like, I'm being true to my authentic self and I had to kind of let somebody down or whatever, but if I can stand in it, then I'm going, right? But if I can't, then, that's not the decision to make for myself. But, altogether here, the main point to drive home is, look, choosing your authentic you does not make you immune to challenges, discomfort. I say actually get ready. You're going to have to deal with it a lot, right? But also understand this, you not choosing you, I feel, is insidious and way more painful, because you're fucking denying yourself and you feel it, whether you want to admit it or not. And a lot of people don't want to admit it, numbing, all the things. So
I think this is also too, you see so many people, like you said, who are ultra successful, but they're miserable on the inside. They're depressed, they have anxiety, they have all of this. And like, they go on this whole spiritual awakening. And from the outside looking in, you're like, we had no idea. I thought they were happy, they were successful, they had all of these things, but so much of it was a byproduct of who they should be, and kind of following that path of, they liked this, they approved of this, they want more of this. And it's just like this whole right kind of like pathway that they go down, and they get to this place and they're like, who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, who is this version of me? And it's like, go to work, put on the mask, show up, based off of how everybody else, we believe that they want us to, but that's not even the truth either, right? Like that's not even the truth, because I think part of that beautiful journey is, this version of ourselves that is authentic is going to be the one who actually makes that massive impact. It's far better than any version of ourselves. Like I said, with my speaking events, like when I used to do it, when I first got started, because I was so fearful, like you said. And I was in that place of fear of like, they're not going to like me. What I'm going to say is not good enough, and then there's all of that underlying like negative self-talk and beliefs. So it was like, let's put on this mask of this image of like, try to be perfect. And it was so much pressure. Like, oh my gosh, the anxiety leading up to something like that was awful. And even if I did well, like I was like, I am dead beat. And it's so different coming out of doing something like how I used to versus coming out of this, because you leave with the power. You leave with the power and you actually feel energized from it as a byproduct. And you're like, you know what? I can see like, this is actually what's going to get me, what I want in my life. It's not going to be this, and people are going to see that and they're going to connect with that. It's far better than what we could have envisioned or thought people wanted. The version of ourselves is going to win 10 times over again. So
true. We don't need more artificial food. We don't need more artificial anything. We don't need artificial talks. We don't need artificial, yeses or nos. Like we need truth. We need raw. We need whole, and to me, you showing up in those moments being you, that is you. It's raw, it's wild, it's whole. And that is so much more fucking badass, beautiful and impactful and really a service, because you're fucking beautiful. You're a beautiful energy, beautiful soul. You have true wisdom and experience. So it's like, shit, let that out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's so much more of an offering. And I think that's where the trust comes in. It's, do you feel like you're enough? Like you quotations, just being you. Can that be enough to fucking serve, to contribute, to impact? You only know when you go, right? And now you definitely know. And I'm sure like any talk that you're about to go give, it's just, a different experience going into it. It's like, what are you preparing for? Like, it's all within you,
Yeah.
Just got to let it out.
100%. And, for you, would you say that this has been something you've always had, or is this something you've had to also kind of step into over the years? Because I know like, oh my goodness, looking back, I was the most self-conscious person in the world when I was younger.
Yeah.
And part of that was I was a dancer, I was a performer. So I always had this mindset of like to perform. And there was a lot of that, pulling back the layers, breaking through that.
Yeah.
But for you, has this been something that you've really had to cultivate over time?
In so many ways, I got lucky that, I have, so I come from a big family, there's 5 of us siblings, and I have an older sister, I'm second in line. And then I have 3 younger brothers who, if you look at them, they're all like older brothers, like, fit athletes. But we trail behind like a year, 2 years. Right. And I grew up very physical, as a competitive runner when I was younger and wanted to go to the Olympics. It was like, but me and my brothers specifically, my sister's very much a part of ours. She's so close, but she's 6 years older than me. Right. So there's a lot of like, almost like mother energy, but my brothers and it was almost like I was an older brother, but I was totally the sister too. Right. So, but what was so cool is that, there was never this like, oh, it's a girl and like I was kicking my brother's asses and pull-ups and push-ups and like, but it wasn't, there was no boy girl. It was like, oh, Roxanne, you know what I mean? I do feel like that contributed to part of my confidence, but I think this is another bigger piece. There's no bullshit in my family. You're getting called out, and we're all alphas. We all have opinions, and like, you're not getting away with shit. Like, there's no costumes, like, please. So, what happens is like, in my internal world with my family, when you are just constantly showing up as you, and whether anybody likes it or not. So whether my brother, when I started like going gluten-free, and they're like, gluten-free, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, yeah, fucking gluten-free, I would fight back, because I grew up in that environment with so much love. But, I guess I learned how to, fight for myself too. Right. because the only other option would be to become smaller or submit in those moments, but that was never an option to me. Right. Yeah. So I think my upbringing actually really did help with my ability to, just continuously say yes to me. Right. But there were other moments where it's like, it's kind of crazy when I look back and I'm like, wow, I'll never forget. Quick story that I think is cool, just to insert here, that goes really with the question. I was I think I was in the 4th grade, and I always kind of like found myself in friendships with the quote unquote popular girls, even though I didn't give a shit. Like I really have never had that. I was friends with everybody. Right. But this one, in 4th grade, it was this one group of girls, and there was this one girl, this one day we're at recess, and this one girl was like in the group. She was kind of a bully, Katrina. Nothing against Katrina's, but that's her name. Calling her out right now. And I'll never forget, so we're all on the playground, and there was this one very introverted, very shy girl, different culture, who's like playing handball with herself. And the bully sees this and starts talking shit. And I can remember this, Rachel, like it's now, because it was so like, it tripped me out. It was so impactful. And I can see, and this is like my, I guess, just, a kind of higher sense of emotional intelligence, like just even at a very young age. But I'm watching the other girls get really uncomfortable in the group, because they inside, this is the authenticity piece. They're not necessarily in agreement with her. I can see that, because this girl's just like playing like by herself, and this girl's just digging into her, and and I'm looking, and these girls are going along with her, but I can see that they're uncomfortable. It's like the classic story of Mean Girls, like you're watching the movie, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I'm disturbed. Now, here's what's so trippy when I look back. It's very dangerous to go against the tribe, right? This is like, ancestral times, right? Like we're not wired to go against this kind of leader, which I think for me, in hindsight, it's like, it just shows my autonomy. There was no leadership over me, right? But in general, like the concept is the leader leads and you go with it, or you're banned from the tribe. And that means like you could die. And especially at a very young age, like it's very easy to, you haven't really formed the steep connection with self yet to be able to go, no, I'm not with this, right? I don't stand for this. But I was so bothered, and I see these girls going along with her, and I was like, I couldn't have it. So I fucking walked over to the girl, and I was like, can I play with you? And in front of those girls, I just started playing ball with her, And then the other girl, like the bully, sees that, and it's like the ultimate diss, and just starts then talking shit on me. And then it was like, I was just waiting for her, like, oh, well, that's good. And like, we went toe to toe. And then like a movie, the teacher comes right at that moment.
Oh, like you guys.
So nothing happened between us. Okay. It was about to, the teacher came, but it's such an important memory for me, because I have proof that back then I said yes to my truth. Wow. And I didn't have to. I could have, but I looked at the other girls. I'm like, you guys don't want to agree with her right now, but you're afraid. Again, this is where the compassion piece, I understood. I'm not judging them, but I would never, ever let myself become that. Number one, nobody rules me. I rule myself. It's a core value of mine, autonomy. And number two, it wasn't right, so I'm not going into that energy and following her lead, but that, it's that story is really, when you ask me, like, have you always been this way? Listen, I've had a lot of insecure moments. I gained like maybe 40 pounds on my 5'4" frame after 3 knee surgeries. And I knew that wasn't my way. I wasn't it just wasn't my body composition. I gain weight all over, luckily. But in those years, getting dressed sucked. You go from having an 8-pack out the womb to like, what's happening, And so the reason why I'm inserting that here is because I'm not at all trying to say that I don't know what insecurity feels like, or being uncomfortable in my own skin, or being but there's something that I think just from a very young age that was drilled into me that I connected with, which was like it or not, fight, or like, let's go, like whatever it is, like I'm going to be me, you know, even in my own uncomfortable skin, even in my, you know, excess weight where I feel uncomfortable, I'm still not going to walk with my head down, you know, and maybe that's a gift because, and that's part of why I'm in this position now to speak and to, you know what I mean? Like, because trust me, I've thought about this a lot, like how did, like, you know, so.
I think that's so rare, you know, because like it's not normal for little girls to see that happening in a playground because we care at that age so much about fitting in and being accepted, which is sounds like why those other girls were like, oh my goodness, I like this doesn't feel right. But in that moment, they cared more about fitting in their own acceptance, you know, over what their true belief system was. And I think a lot of us will have that intuition that comes up. We're like, ooh, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like this is the direction I should be going in life or what's happening here. But we reject that based off of wanting to fit in, whether that's society or the group we're a part of. Like as humans, we care so much about what other people think. And I think in that moment too, also, it sounds like you were like, I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what's right. I'm going my own pathway and I am choosing me. And I'm also choosing this girl and standing up for what I believe in. And I think that's just so freaking powerful to know that intuitively at a young age. You know, I don't know.
I do too. I wasn't conscious of like, this is from a psychology perspective of like what was happening, but that's what I'm saying. I look back and I'm like, Roxanne, that was actually a big deal that you did that because you risk a lot. I mean, that's really you know, why people reject themselves is because again, like they haven't developed real trust in themselves. And they're afraid that if they don't do the thing, there's some kind of loss and it's going to create such a level of pain that they maybe won't know how to recover from, that they don't choose, you know, to be true to self. Right. But it's so interesting because the more you choose to say yes to self, the more you develop how I frame it is this unbreakable relationship with yourself. So no matter what life throws at you or what you face in life, it's like, man, you got your back. You're on your team the whole way through. So it's a complete, but you have to, it's like you said it earlier, you know, now you can always look back and like, you have reference, you have proof, you have to build this. Like, I wish that we could just say, oh, you know, just channel it. And it's just easily like, you can download it. Like it's all there. I believe that, you know, listen, a lot does happen in the mind to be intentional, to, you know, set you up to do things that can be hard and to move through hard. But I do think there's something about being in a physical world, in a physical vessel for a reason. Like we're in a body for a reason. We are not just consciousness, like, you know, and in my world, and I know in your world, and this kind of can bridge the fitness, but it's like, I leverage my physicality. I leverage this physical vessel for me to create the proof that I know, want, and need to cultivate the life that I want to fucking live. Right. And so that really does segue into like, I was actually thinking of you this morning, like lifting heavy, no PRs, but like it was a heavier, and I needed it, Rachel. Like I'm like, I want to feel my fucking strength this morning, you know, because I'm moving through some hard stuff, business, this, that, whatever. And the skill transfer is incredible because you take it out of the gym and you put it into whatever other area you need in your life, but you have proof, you know?
Yes, definitely. And I think for people too, who maybe didn't have that when they were younger, you know, like you cultivated that, but I would imagine it's like that muscle, like you have to keep using it. And I know for me, like fitness has been that part for me. Like it is a part of who I am. I have this story I always tell, and there was this guy in the elevator one time, and he's like looking at me, kind of checking me out up and down, but he had a question. I knew I just kind of by the way his face, and he was like, how long have you been training for, and how do you stay so consistent in it? And he kind of stumped me for a moment, and I kind of thought, and I was like, well, you know, I was a gymnast and as a dancer growing up, and then I got into weightlifting and bodybuilding in college, and then now I just train because I love it. And I was like, I don't know, I'm an athlete. That's who I am. And I realized there in that moment, the difference between me and him and just kind of the way that our brains operated. And not that that can't change over time, but it was
Sure.
a part of me and who I was. It was my identity. I was an athlete. This is how I show up on a day-to-day basis. And when I say I'm an athlete, I don't mean like I'm an athlete just in the gym or just in fitness. I'm like, I'm an athlete. I push myself. This is just how I show up in general in life. I'm a life athlete.
You are.
And, here he's like, how do I just stay consistent with working out? And it truly has to be that part of your identity at the core. Otherwise, it's just going to be something you do. Like I'm doing a diet, right? I'm going to work out at the gym, but it's not like I'm a healthy person.
Yeah.
I choose health. I choose
Right.
myself. I'm an athlete. There's a huge, massive difference between those two, right? And I think like fitness for me, because I didn't have that upbringing growing up. I was a very insecure, little girl, super shy, introverted, still am introverted, but I've been able to cultivate that, I think, through fitness, number one, pushing myself further and further, doing things where I'm in the moment and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like my body is going to give out. And I'm like, nope, you just keep going, you keep going. And it's like that self-dialogue that really transfers in those other areas. It's the same thing with the ice bath. I think that's been one of the biggest catalysts for me. But then also what you talked about earlier is like having that space to really just like go inward and like connect with myself. And that now is such a crucial part of my morning. Like I have to do that before I do anything else. I don't know how my boyfriend Aaron can just like wake up and get into his work and just immediately start doing stuff. I'm like, not me. I need, minimum of an hour, and I will wake up earlier if I have to. Like I will skip sleep. I will do whatever to have that time for myself, and I'm just like you with meditation and journaling. And then I have to just like move my body. Then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to tackle the day there. But I think like for those who didn't really have that and have struggled with that, it's like, do some hard shit, like do some things where you really have to overcome. Right. And I think fitness is just such a beautiful gateway drug to cultivating a lot of that too.
It totally is. And, there's this like so often in my stories in the morning when I'm moving, I'm like, hey, I'll do the invitation or the call out like, hey, do this in spirit, get in your body. You have to get in your body. You wake up and you have to create the connection with your body is what I'm trying to say. Movement, whatever that is, yoga, walking. I mean, I have all kinds of, different modalities of movement. I know you do too. It's like, but the point is that you have to, just the same way that we sit down and we meditate, do the breath work, do the, for me, journaling, it's like, that's like me going into my heart, my consciousness, my highest self, like connecting. Again, then there's the physicality aspect of things, right? Which, yes, your mind is active and you're connecting with your mind the whole time in those moments, like we were just talking about skill transfer. But I do think there's something about feeling your actual body, turning your fucking body on to have it work in your favor, work for you, because we're here in this body for a reason, So for me, I'm like, cool, like, let me leverage this physical vessel to my favor so that it's supporting me in every avenue of my life. And I love that you say, you're a life athlete, because it's, it's the same for me. It's like, yeah, I don't compete in anything, but life is my sport. And as an entrepreneur, as a, high performing woman, as a path creator, so living from my authentic self, which means like I'm literally, I call it the scenic route. Like I'm not on the highway, go this way, do that, turn exit here. It's like I'm in the fucking jungle. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm listening to within to, move me through this, very raw terrain that is called, the scenic route in my world, but, for me to have to be able to call in, all the parts of me, the mind, the spirit, the energy, the physical support, all of it is really, it makes such a massive difference. And this is another reason why, again, I love you and your work, because you do not look at just one thing. You could be, I know gut health is obviously a huge focus, but even in gut health, it's like you're looking at all these parts, because you cannot just go, oh, well, here it's, the herbs. It's like, or take out the gluten. It's like, no, it's like, how are you sleeping? Like, what's your internal dialogue like? Because that's actually information, just like food, just like sunlight. Right. So yeah, it's so, when you feel, this is another thing I know we're so synergistic on, but it's like, when you've gone from feeling like shit, whatever that means. So with you, you have the gut issues. With me, I had the knee surgeries, gained all the weight, right? And you know that feeling. And plus I, was eating American diet, like, it was 80s, whatever. And then you move into this other space with yourself, this other connection with yourself and your health and you start to feel what that's doing on every level. So not just the physical, not just, oh, I look good in my clothes or not clothes, but like, I actually wake up and I'm like excited to live my life. To me, that is number one point of success. Do I wake up with energy? Do I wake up, excited and perky and, just inspired to move into my day? And I'm very fortunate that that is the dominating energy. I'm not saying I don't have days where I'm like, fucking hormonal. And I'm like, oh, because that's a real thing. But, 100% straight up, like it is the dominating energy. I wake up between, depending on when I went to bed, and I go to sleep early, 4, 5:30, no alarm, not needed, wake up with energy, move into my morning ritual, which is that time with me doing all the things. I'm also not fragile or rigid about it. Like if one day I don't get to journal because, I just feel like I need to get out and move, like it's okay. But the whole point is, yes, starting the day first and foremost with connection to self and doing, diving into all these territories, mind, heart, energy, physical body, to cultivate the best experience within ourselves to then be expressed on the external throughout the day.
Yeah. What I'm really hearing you talk to is even like that emotional resilient side, because even like this week for me, like I was like, I'm fatigued. I feel like physically, I feel tired. And I think there will be so many times in our life where physically we're run down, like we're beat down, like we're struggling, it's a push, definitely. Like I've been through that many times. And I know in previous versions of me, like I would kind of shrink into that. And then that's where the anxiety and everything else would come from, because there was like this resistance of like being there. And now I can be in this place of like, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I didn't maybe sleep very well last night. And you're like, but you know what? Like, I still feel like this is a good day. Like I am still excited about life. I'm still, stepping in and showing up as my best. And I think our best, of course, looks different on different days too, right? Like,
100%.
But I think as long as you're like, I'm giving my best and I'm doing what I can to show up as that best version of me and fighting for that version of me, like you're going to feel good, and it gets rid of a lot of those emotions instead of like shrinking into whatever physical feeling may be there. And the same can be said, right, with fitness. When we're like, oh, I feel tired, this water is freezing cold. And then we listen to that.
Right.
And it can be happen after a night of sleep. It can happen all these times, but it's like that emotional resilience piece, which is very different than that like physical resilience piece. Cause it's like how we talk to ourselves, right? Like through that. And it's the thoughts we choose to lean into and what we choose to actually believe. Cause now I'll have thoughts come up and I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. Like, that's a lie. That's a lie. And then I can easily get past it. Like it comes up, like, it's not like it goes away completely, but it does like over time get like smaller and smaller.
Yes,
smaller. I won't say like you ever get rid of it. Right. But
I don't think you do.
It's like, you don't trust that anymore. You're like, this is actually the truth. And I've proven it to myself.
One of my writing affirmations that I love, it's like a mantra, when shit's going down, I'm like, the truth in me knows, and it cuts through all the chatter, the mind, that's like, trying to, disturb my nervous system basically, and put me in a state of confusion or I don't know or whatever. And it's like, the truth in me knows. I love what you just shared so much too. I think it's a good place to insert the self-compassion piece because, when this cultivation of the relationship that you've created with yourself, right? The self-awareness and then, the self-love, the self-worth, like all of that, then, so you wake up and you're in a moment where you're tired, like you're legit tired, and maybe it's just kind of like a low frequency day for whatever reason, tired, hormones, this, that. But you're like, okay, this is where the relationship is so fucking powerful because you can say in my world, right? It's like, girl, Rox, my love, I love you. I know it's hard. Makes perfect sense. You've been charging, girl. You've been going, or this thing is really hard, or this thing really hurt. I get it. let's just give it our best.
Mm.
Let's just see what we can pull out of us. Like, let's just go, like, just whatever your best is right now. Like, I just want you to try, right? That is a real conversation with myself.
Mhm.
And I mean, just forget about hearing, feeling that energy, right? Like, how are you not going to go, okay, let me just, try. Let me just, because you're moving with love. You're moving
Mhm.
with respect. You're saying to self, I see, hear, and feel you. We don't have to succumb to like, submitting to, or like, I'm not going to try or whatever, but like, hey girl, like, I'm with you, but
Mhm.
let's just go. Like, let's just do the best we can in this moment, because we're worth it, because it's important to us, and if it's like time to completely take your foot off the brake then that's something that you're in a better position to honor that as well in those moments, because you really trust yourself. You really trust that, like, hey, that's the cue from my heart. My heart is saying back off right now. We're safe to put the work down, to not talk, or like whatever it is. But if you don't have that relationship with yourself, then you're up in your head a lot and you're like, no, it's not safe. I got to keep pushing. Hello, burnout, right? Disconnect of self is how I see it. You keep going. So the big takeaway there is like, man, everything we're talking about here, cultivating this really empowered, loving, unbreakable relationship with yourself in any which moment of your life, like, you will be supported on a whole nother level, in the examples I just gave you. So it's the ultimate investment, and there's so many ways to invest. We've obviously talked about a lot of them, but whether it's, doing the physical work, doing the ritual work, the conversations with yourself, like, all of that stuff is an ongoing life investment that will continue to help you develop this empowered relationship with yourself and support you to live from your most authentic self, which, I mean, to me, that is how you live a life of true fulfillment, which means to me, it's inside and out. You're not just winning on the outside, you're winning on the inside too.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love you so much.
I love you too.
You came on my show here today, and I know I could talk to you for like hours and hours and hours
we
on
will.
this show. And I know everyone would also probably love it too. No, not probably, they would love it 100%.
Thank you.
But I actually have a very similar conversation with myself too, and I'm fatigued, which is interesting hearing that, because I know when I'm tired, I used to be so negative about myself, like the fear of I'm not going to be able to show up. Like, I've had days where I didn't sleep well and I'm like, I got to go podcast. I got to go do this stuff.
Yeah.
And now the conversation has really switched to like, it's okay. You know what? You might be a little bit tired today. You might be tired, but that's okay, because you're still going to show up. And what you're going to say is still going to be enough. And you know what? It's actually going to be perfect. And it's like all of that fear just like completely, shrinks away in that moment. Because it's like you said, that like compassion piece, but also like kind of a little push, like, you're okay. You can keep going. You can keep moving.
Yeah.
Like, you're not, everything's going to like fall to the ground and crumble.
Yes.
Like, what you're going to bring with where you're at now is going to be enough. And
100%. And that's also you saying yes to your authentic self in that moment. But just to, drive home the point, like, because it would be so easy to be like, shush, Rachel. No, we gotta, but that's not the truth. Truth is saying like, no, we're gonna chill out. I love that you are in that place because with yourself, because, it's so important, you are in a beautiful position of leadership and you're so empowering, you're so inspiring, you have a beautiful community that appreciates you and loves you for great reason, and you can speak from truth. And that's where real power and impact is. There's too many performers, so I love that you can speak to every side, the hard, that compassion piece. You're not a girl who's like, oh, I'm going to just, make the excuse. And, no, you're going to push when you got to push, but you're also not, someone who denies those moments where your heart is like, hey,
100%.
let's like reel it in right now and just sit with yourself or whatever that is for you. So I love that you're there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, if for someone who's listening right now and like they're hearing all of this and they're like, I have no idea like where to start with this. Cause I know like you and I can connect on
Yeah.
like we get it. And a lot of people who've done the work, which is a lot of the people who listen to my podcast. What would you say is the most important piece to start with?
I think the most important piece is sitting with yourself and asking yourself some questions. This is why journaling it's huge.
Mhm.
I'm always going to point to journaling number one, because journaling is also different than meditation. I think meditation is the next step, and it's such an important step. But it really, what journaling is, you being in a room with you. And it's not easy for everybody. That's why I created the guided journal, because I know that sometimes it feels daunting to have a blank, like, where do I start? Or I don't know what if I want to face what's in here. But if you have a hard time being with yourself, I mean, that's your cue right there to go, okay, I got to go that way, because you don't ever want to have a hard time being, with yourself, right? That needs to be home to you. That needs to be your sanctuary. You have to build a sanctuary, and so for me, the number one tool, the greatest, attribute I believe that has brought me to be the woman I am today, that has positioned me to be in this place with myself, is that I've been writing the majority of my life. I have lived in my journal. I have stacks of them, so that for sure, I would say is step number one. And then I would say this too. Look, it's like top down, bottom up, outside in, right? This is neuroscience, right? How we're getting our information. Journaling is very top down, right? Bottom up is hormones, the health stuff, right? Like all of that stuff. Like outside in is external stressors, sunlight, community.
Yeah.
So just think of it I love the framework. Think about your bottom up and your outside in aspects as well. Evaluate and use your journal. What's a day in the life of you look like? Don't judge yourself. I know it's hard. I know. But be a student of self. You want to be a student of life? Well, you have to be a student of self. What's your food like? What's your sleep like? You're just collecting information. You need information, because when you collect the information and you can actually see it, because most people aren't even conscious of a lot of like behaviors and the habits, and then you go, oh, well, maybe, if I improved my sleep a little bit, I wouldn't wake up and feel so tired, and that energy decrease would, or an energy increase rather, would support my work and my relationships. So you're looking at yourself from a very curious and do the best you can, loving way, where you're really trying to learn information so that you can then go, what do I need to edit? How do I need to edit it? And then, because everybody's going to be a different place, right? Some people need to adjust their health. Some people maybe have their health, the nutrition of it, but they don't have the spirit, the energy, the self-connection piece. So top down, bottom up, outside in is to me the simple, easy framework way for people to start thinking about how to kind of move from where they are to get into higher states, and lean into your journal, this very sacred, safe room. It's going to listen to you. It's not going to talk back to you. It's not going to judge you, any of that. It's just there to hold space for you, your authentic you.
It sounds like kind of that first piece of like that observation mode, but like really kind of taking note without that judgment piece. Yeah. That self-awareness piece. And I'm a huge fan of journaling. And you guys, she has the most beautiful journal that she sent me. And it's a funny story, because I actually didn't know at first it was from her when I got it. And I was in the car and I'm like reading through, and I'm like, who sent this to me? Oh my goodness, this woman is speaking to my soul, because there's just like such the most beautiful kind of like entry to the entire journal about like what the journal has really meant for you and been this place, and like who she's been and how she's shown up for you and throughout your entire life. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is the most powerful journal that I've ever had. So if you guys want to start journaling, you need to head over to Roxy's website. Definitely check out her journal, because you said it's self-guided, right? Like with
it's a guided and illustrated self-actualization journal. Yeah, there's sections in it that are very specific, which you can totally ignore and like do whatever you need to do. I make that very clear in the beginning, but these questions and these prompts are there to support you, to anchor you into the very specific sections that I put into this journal. And then the other cool thing that I just have to share, because I worked so hard for 4 years. So I never found a journal, and this is so important to me. I've never found a journal that has both lined and blank pages. And I went through a huge phase in my journaling where I was like these big sketchbooks. And looking back, Rachel, it's so funny because I'm like, oh my God, you're fighting for your autonomy. I literally would write all over it, like purposely, like nothing tells me what to do. No lines are going to direct me. Like I get to go where I want to go and get to be, so it's really
not even the journal.
But I love the lines now. Like I love the directional energy. I love the refinement. There's a place for both. So I had to find a really kick-ass manufacturer that would say yes to all of my very specific, details. And yeah, you are the path. That's the name of the journal. And I love that you didn't know it was for me. It's like, look, I've been coming at you from a talk back then. Now I'm coming at you.
I'm like getting all these surprise things but they're so meaningful. And I think that's also too, because, sometimes you get gifts from people and you're like, oh, this person sent me a gift and it's meaningful because they thought of you and they sent it to you, but it's something else to like just get something and you have no idea who it's from. And you're like,
drop down from the universe.
Yeah. And you're like, this is so cool. This is so impactful. So I mean that like with my whole heart, like it's beautiful. And I can tell that you put your heart and everything into that, for people to really have that with themselves too. So you guys definitely need to check it out. And the last question I have, because I know we've gone way over here today, is what is something you're super excited about right now?
Oh my goodness. So many things. Number one, our friendship, truly. Like, I can't wait to come hang out and lift some weights and eat some steak and do all the hiking, ice bath. One thing that I'm so just lit up by right now, though, is I just launched the very first run of my first digital course. It's a signature digital course. Your Future Self is the name of it. And everything, the premise of it is what we talked about in this beautiful talk, building, architecting this ultimate relationship with your ultimate self. So I say future self, but for me, the future self is not just you a year from now, 5 years from now. It's the highest you, the highest expression of you that is always just in front of you, leading you. And she's there for a reason, or he's there for a reason, right? Because it's there to guide you. It's your North Star, right? But when you can first of all, want to get very clear on this frequency, this being that is you, and then cultivate a real connection so that you're moving through your life in partnership with this being that is you. I mean, that's everything we talked about. Everything changes. I'm in a very deep relationship with my highest self, future self. I call her my muse, also the woman in the mirror. But yeah, it just launched and we just started this week. So I've got incredible women in this course who I'm so excited to support, because there's live coaching in it, and to support them and to witness what is about to unfold. It's an 8-week course. So it's really, really inspiring, and they're so lit up. And there's so many things, when you know this, when you are really living from your authentic self. And also, I think it's so important that you are cultivating a lifestyle that supports your optimal state of health, like just for you to feel as healthy and in vitality. There's just always so much inspiration and things that you're like, you almost have to like, there's so much creativity, that you're like, oh my God. But yeah, that's our friendship and my future self digital course.
I'm honored, and the feeling is mutual. I'm super excited to hang with you and continue to cultivate this friendship. And the course sounds amazing. Is this something so people can jump in whenever, or it's like kind of self-author, or it's like set times throughout the year?
Yeah, it's set time. So they can definitely jump on the wait list. I will open it up again. I don't know exactly when yet. But it's my baby. It's actually the first, first teachable experience book that I'm writing, because I have poetry books coming. It's all centered around this. So it's not going to go away. I just can't say yet when it's going to relaunch.
It's going to be, yeah.
But I would definitely for women who are interested, jump on the wait list because it will open back up. And I just know firsthand what this relationship, that cultivating this relationship will do, for those who show up to do the work.
Yeah. So you guys go check out Roxy's website. I'm going to get it from her here in a minute. But she puts so much content out there. You guys can check out her podcast, Black Belt Beauty, and you guys can follow her on social media. You can get her journal, go to her website. You can get so much of this information that she's already putting out there, for free. And if you want to dive in a bit deeper, join the wait list, sign up for her course. It sounds incredible. Get into journaling. So Roxy, I thank you wholeheartedly for coming on the show here today. Where can people find you, follow you, get all the information?
You're amazing. Thank you so much, girl. Blackbeltbeauty.com is the mothership. It's where you can find podcasts. You can find anything that, how to work with me, the course, all of that, and journal as well. Roxy Look is my personal IG account that I'm, very active on, especially stories. And then there's Black Belt Beauty as well, Instagram. So yeah, but Rachel, thank you so much, girl. I literally just am, so excited, so happy that we've connected. And thank you, because the day that we met, you came up to me and started talking to me, and I'm so glad you did.
Which is weird as myself being an introvert, but when I walked into that being and I told her this to Eric too, I'm going to make an effort to try to talk to everybody in the room.
I am so grateful you did.
Which is not like me.
I love that you did, because I'm so self-contained. I could just, be there and kind of people, when they hear I'm introverted, they're like, huh? How could you be so? I'm sure you get that too, because we're always out here talking and doing, but it's no, I'm so grateful. And yeah, like I said a million times, I'm really excited just to come hang out with you in the real life. And we'll definitely I'm going to have you back on the show. Love that you've already been on there, and just love everything you're doing, girl. So I am in your corner.
Yes, the feeling is mutual. I'm seriously so grateful to hang with you and hang with you even again here, later this weekend. So you guys go give Roxy a follow, check out all of the stuff that she's doing with her podcast, her social media. And if you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor, share it on your stories, tag Roxy, take myself, and this has been Scheer Madness.